Hey, third grade, it's Mrs. Wade here to teach you your math lesson today. So we're continuing on fractions, and this week we're going to talk about different things we can do with fractions, like comparing them. So what I want you to do is today, it might be helpful for you to after take a look at your book and follow along with that so you understand better. It's on page 392, and it kind of gives you a few methods on how to compare. So when we compare, we're talking about one thing against another thing. So what you're wanting to look at is one's greater, one's less than, or they're equal to. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. So take a look here. Okay, comparing fractions. Okay, let's get started. So let's review. So first I want you to take a look at this and let's review just fractions in general. How much of the shape is shaded? Check your answer. We'll check your answer. So first, is it half? Is it 1/3? Or is it 1/4? Well, you would be right if you said 1/3 is correct, right? Just a few things to remind ourselves of how we look at fractions. So now let's identify the fractions of these shaded portions. So here, take a moment. Okay, this one is going to be 4/6 or 4/6. Take a look at this one. 3/4 or 3/4. And this last one over here is 1/3. So just a few reminders on how you go ahead and label fractions. So a few facts to remind you of. The top number of your fraction is called the numerator. And then the bottom one is called the denominator. Remember that we talked about denominator is downstairs. So you talk about how many total pieces are there and then how many are being shaded. So here we have 4 total pieces. So that makes 1, 2, 3 fourths. Okay, there's just a few things to review there. So how you compare fractions, fractions can be compared by their size. The larger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. So imagine a pizza. You have a pizza and you cut it up into 8 pieces. But if I also had a pizza and I just cut it up into 4, now if I have it cut up into 4, those 4 pieces are going to be larger than the pieces that were if I cut the pizza up into 8. Okay, so look here. So which piece of the pizza or the pie would you rather have? Would you rather have 1/4 right here? Or would you have 1/8? Well, you'd rather have 1/4. 1/4 is more, right? 1/8 is just half of the 4th because it's just cutting it up more and more. So that's what you got to remember. The bigger the denominator, it means it's smaller. Okay, that means it's a smaller fraction. Okay, let's go on. So let's compare. So for example, if I take half here and a 4th. So a 4th is less than a half, that's right. An 1/8 is less than a half. A 5th is less than a half. All of those are less than a half. The half is going to be more. And if you look, it has a smaller denominator because it's only cut up into 2 pieces. But if it's cut up into 5, 8, or 4, that's more pieces, so the pieces are smaller. Okay, so let's look here. A 4th. A 5th is going to be less than a 4th because it's cut up into 5 pieces rather than 4. And an 1/8 is going to be less than a 4th because it's cut up literally double the amount. Okay, so you have to look at each of these and kind of think of that. Okay, so let's compare. So over here, let me write some of these down for us. Over here, I'm gonna write what my fractions are. Here I have 2/4. 2 pieces are shaded out of the 4, and here I have 1/4. So now I need to go ahead and compare. Remember, compare means you're going to show. So which one's bigger? I want the alligator goes towards the bigger one. So here I would put this here. So I would say 2/4 is greater than 1/4. Okay, let's try another one. Let me clear that. Here's another one. So this one, I have 2 slices out of 6 here, 2 6. And here I have 4 6. So obviously 4 6 is bigger. So I'm going to go 2 6 is less than 4 6. Okay? Let's keep going. Okay, here's another one where they just wrote it out. It's pretty easy this way. So we're going to go 3/10 compared to 9/10. Well, 9/10 is bigger because that's 9 of the 10 slices rather than just 3 of the 10. So I say 3/10 is less than 9/10. That's how you compare. So Another word we've talked about is equivalent fractions. So kind of how like 2/4 and 1/2, they're equivalent or the same. So for example, let's take a look. If I were to, here's a pizza. That's not a very, very well-drawn pizza. So if I have 1/2, look here, I have 1/2. That's the huge slice of pizza I'm gonna eat. Okay, I have 1/2 there. So then if I go ahead and if I cut it one more time into 4 slices and I do 2/4, those are the same thing. So all I'm gonna have to do is put equal. It's another way of looking at here, like they put here. If they do 1 out of 2 or 2 out of 4, it's the same exact thing, or it's equivalent or same. Okay, let's move on to the next one so we can see what else we've got. Okay, so now here's another thing. This is where it gets tricky. When your fractions don't have the same denominator, it's hard to do it. So this is what I want you to think about, fraction strips. So it's kind of like you take a strip and you cut it up. It's just kind of like if you had a pizza and you cut it up into slices. So if you had 2/3 and 12/18. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to color in each one. So I'm going to do my 2/3. So here's my 2. I'm just going to do it like this. 1 2/3. Okay, so that's 2/3 to show my fraction script. My fraction strip. Over here, 12/18. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So do you notice that? Do you notice that technically they're the same amount, right? They both stop right there. So I would actually say that 2/3 is equal to 12/18. So you see how that works? Sometimes it helps to do a fraction strip because it could show you. Now if that had been 11/18, you say 2/3 is more than it, but it's not. It matches perfectly. That's a way that you can go ahead about it. Sometimes you can do some fraction strips to help you out. Okay, so here's another one. So 1/2 and 2/2, which is technically 2 pieces out of 2 pieces. That's a whole. So you would say 2 out of 2 is more. 3/4 versus 1/4. Well, 3/4 is greater than 1/4. 4/8, 5/8. 5/8 is greater than. So you say 4/8 is less than 5/8. 4/6, 2/6. 4/6 is greater than 2/6. So that's all you're doing with comparing. Okay, last few things. So here now, this is where it kind of gets tricky. You have to put them in order. So let's go ahead and pull these. Well, I'm going to start with my first 1/8. Then I got 2/8, 5/8, 7/8. So you put them in order. Now, if all those, we are lucky, all those denominators were the same, but sometimes in some of the math games you're going to work on today, you might notice they're different. So what I want you to do, if that's the case, pull out a fraction strip. It's just a piece of paper and literally draw like a square or a circle and cut it into that many pieces and then compare it to another one so you can figure out how to go ahead and go about it. Okay, so let's stop this. So comparing fractions, you're just looking at one thing towards another and deciding less than, greater than, equal to, or equivalent. So let's take a look at what you're going to do today. Today, rather than having you do a worksheet, the workbook sheet was a little complicated. I want you to work on some of this with some of the math games we have. So take a look up here, and there's 3 different things. First, you can go to Splash Math. If you go to Splash Math, you can go ahead and if you go in there, there should be some things already. Here, I'm going to go to my profile. There should be some things already in there for you to work on. So you can come in here and you'll see fractions. Just come on here. If you want to compare fractions, same number, finish those off and try that. Another option is Math Playground has a lot of different things. So they have some fun games that talk about comparing fractions. So here it shows you, you can walk through the directions. And so I'm going to go through here. Now you're not going to always get all of them right, but just do your very best. So I'm going to think 2/5 and 2/8. So maybe if you have a whiteboard or something like that at home, or just a spare piece of paper, draw a circle, cut it into 5. Or do a strip of just like a rectangle, cut it into 5. And then do another one, cut it into 8. But remember, more pieces means smaller pieces. So here, 2/5, 2/8. Well, 2/5 is going to be greater than 2/8. And I'm just going to keep going through and I'll tell you if you got them right. Okay, so that's one of them you can do. And then another game I had, it's kind of fun, it's called Tug Team, comparing fractions. You've got one on one side, one on the other. This is a game where you would, you just start the game. Sometimes it's playing against other people's, otherwise it's not. So here, I'm gonna go in here, it's gonna ask me a question. Okay, so 2/3, 1/2. Okay, I've gotta think about it. Well, half, if I cut my circle into 2, or if I cut it into 3, well, you know what? 2/3 is actually gonna be, so I'm gonna put 2/3 is greater than. And then what you're gonna go ahead and keep going, and it'll pull you Tug Team back and forth. Okay, so once you finish, I want you to take about 10 to 15 minutes and practice some of those games just to practice comparing fractions, and then go ahead and press Mark is done in Google Classroom to let me know you've gone through this lesson today. Okay, 3rd grade, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.